Welcome back to the deep dive. I've always been fascinated by those people who just seem to light up a room, the ones who can command attention without even trying. So when you sent in this stack of excerpts from the charisma myth, I knew we had to do a deep dive to uncover their secrets. Especially because you mentioned wanting some practical advice for those high-pressure moments we all face.
What's interesting is that the book really debunks this myth, that charisma is some innate, magical quality. It turns out it's actually a set of skills that can be learned and honed.
Okay, you've got my attention. You're telling me I don't have to be born a smooth talker to have that magnetic pull.
And the book goes even further, suggesting that even shy individuals can learn to project charisma, particularly through mastering specific nonverbal cues.
But how do we even begin to unpack this thing called charisma?
Well, the book breaks it down into three core elements:
Hmm.
presence, power, and warmth. And what's fascinating is that these elements aren't isolated. They work together synergistically.
So it's not just about strutting around like you own the place or showering everyone with compliments. There's more to it.
Right. Imagine someone with tons of power, but no warmth. They might come off as intimidating or even cold. On the flip side, someone overflowing with warmth, but lacking power, might be likable, but not influential.
Hmm.
And presence, well, that's the foundation. Without it, you're just blending into the background. The magic happens when all three elements are in harmony.
Now that's a recipe I can get behind. The book mentions a story about a guy named James who completely transformed himself. What can we learn from his journey?
James's story is a perfect illustration of how mastering these elements can change your trajectory. In the conclusion, chapter 14, we learn that James started out as a nice guy, but constantly overlooked.
Ouch. I think we've all felt a bit invisible at times. So how did James go from wallflower to, well, not a wallflower. What specifically did he do?
He had the skills, but lacked the charisma to make them shine. Through coaching, he focused on presence. By consciously bringing his full attention to each interaction, he cultivated power. By owning his space, standing tall, and speaking with conviction, and he amplified warmth by genuinely connecting with people and making them feel valued. This combination, according to the book, led to a promotion and an overall boost to his career.
Wow, a total transformation. That's seriously inspiring. But I have to admit, sometimes I feel like my own worst enemy, like I have this internal baggage that holds me back. The book talks about some of these internal obstacles.
Right, it does. And what's fascinating is how much our inner world influences our outer charisma. Chapter 4 dives into some common obstacles, like negativity bias. This means we tend to focus on the negative aspects of a situation.
No, I know that one all too well. My inner critic loves to remind me of every possible worst-case scenario.
Leading to self-doubt and anxiety.
What else can sabotage our charisma from the inside?
Shame is another big one. The book describes it as the fear of being unlovable. And when we're caught in that shame spiral,
It's like we're afraid to let people see the real us,
Yeah.
flaws and all. It makes total sense why that would dampen our charisma.
right, it's hard to project confidence and warmth. And this fear of unlovability can even prevent us from forming genuine connections with others, which is crucial for projecting warmth.
So how do we deal with these inner gremlins? The book mentions some practical techniques.
Absolutely. One technique that jumped out at me is destigmatizing discomfort.
It's funny how we often assume everyone else has it figured out, while we're the only ones struggling. It's reassuring to know these feelings are universal.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging those uncomfortable emotions we all have. Instead of trying to push them away, the book reminds us that everyone feels anxious or insecure sometimes. You're not alone in this.
And instead of getting caught up in that negative spiral, the book offers another technique called Neutralizing Negativity.
It's about realizing that our thoughts aren't always facts. Remember that study where people were so focused on counting basketball passes?
Wait, they missed a gorilla. That's hilarious, but also a bit unsettling. I mean, how could they not see that?
Right. That they missed a person in a gorilla suit? It shows how our minds can completely distort reality.
So neutralizing negativity is about stepping back and questioning those automatic negative thoughts.
Often by focusing on the negative. So neutralizing negativity is about stepping back and questioning those automatic negative thoughts. Is this thought actually true? Or am I just catastrophizing?
So instead of believing every negative thought that pops into my head, I can challenge it and look for a more balanced perspective.
Exactly. And the book goes even further with a technique called rewriting reality. The author recounts a story about prepping for a big speech in Bogota.
And what happened? Did the rewritten reality become actual reality?
They were riddled with anxiety imagining the audience hating their speech. So they consciously chose to rewrite the story, picturing the audience engaged and receptive. The speech was a success. They felt confident throughout, and the audience responded positively.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a bit more empowered already. What about those times when we have to interact with people let's just say, don't exactly love? Any tips for finding some semblance of warmth in those situations?
It's a powerful reminder that we have more control over our internal state than we realize. And that, in turn, influences our external charisma. The book recommends getting satisfaction as a way to approach these tricky interactions.
So instead of fixating on how annoying someone is, I can challenge myself to find at least one thing to appreciate about them.
It's not about pretending to like someone you don't, but rather consciously shifting your focus to their positive qualities,
Yeah.
even if it feels a bit artificial at first.
I'll admit, that one sounds like it'll take some practice, but I'm willing to give it a try. So we've talked about overcoming those pesky internal obstacles. Now, how do we cultivate those charismatic mental states in the first place?
Exactly. The book suggests that over time, this shift in focus can actually neutralize some of that negative energy and make the interaction more bearable. Chapter 5 dives into the power of visualization.
So if it works for Olympic athletes, there's got to be something to it, right? But visualization hasn't always been easy for me. What if my imagination isn't very vivid?
It mentions athletes like Jack Nicklaus, who famously visualize every golf shot before taking it, and Olympic ski teams, who mentally rehearse their runs for hours. I get it. The book outlines a step-by-step process that begins with relaxed breathing to calm the mind and body.
And the more real I can make it feel, the more my mind and body will believe it, right?
Then you vividly imagine a scenario that evokes the desired feeling, like confidence. That's the idea. But visualization is tough.
I like that. A mental pep talk. Are there any other alternatives?
The book suggests focusing on specific phrases that evoke the desired emotion. For calmness, it could be, I am at peace, or for confidence, I am capable and strong. It's like giving your mind a positive mantra to latch onto. Another option is to curate music playlists.
Okay, that one is right up my alley. I have playlists for everything. So now that we're starting to master our inner game, how do we project that charismatic warmth outward?
That correspond to your desired mood. Music can powerfully influence our emotions and even our physiology. Interestingly, Chapter 5 emphasizes that true warmth
It's like we're building a fire from the inside out, right?
has to be cultivated internally first.
Yeah.
And this is where practices like gratitude, goodwill, compassion, and self-compassion come into play.
Exactly. And for those of us who struggle with summoning goodwill,
Angel wings. Now that's an image I wouldn't expect. In a book about charisma, does that really work?
particularly towards those who test our patience, the book suggests a rather unique exercise. Imagine the person you're interacting with has angel wings. It might sound silly, but many people, including seasoned executives, okay, I'm willing to give the angel wings a try. What about self-compassion? I know that's an area I could use some work on. How does that tie into charisma?
I find it surprisingly effective. It's about shifting your perspective and seeing the good in others, which softens your attitude and allows warmth to flow more naturally. Well, when we're constantly beating ourselves up, it shows.
So if I'm kinder to myself, I'll naturally radiate more warmth outwards.
Self-criticism can really dampen our warmth and make us seem insecure. The book highlights that individuals with high self-compassion
I like that. It's a gentle reminder that we're not starting from scratch. What about those times when self-compassion feels really hard? Any other tools in the toolkit?
tend to be more resilient and better able to handle those difficult situations.
Yeah.
That can make or break our charisma.
Exactly. And the book has a really simple exercise. List 5 ways you already care for yourself. This helps you recognize that you already have self-compassionate tendencies. You just need to amplify them. The book introduces meta-meditation. Meditation for charisma. This is definitely expanding my definition of charisma. Does it really make a difference?
A Buddhist practice of sending loving kindness to yourself and others. You visualize yourself and others being happy and peaceful, free from suffering, even if the practice feels awkward at first.
Okay, I'm adding meta to my to-do list. So we've laid the groundwork for inner warmth. Now, how do we express that warmth? Through nonverbal communication.
The book says it can make you more present and connected throughout your day, allowing that inner warmth to radiate outwards more naturally. Chapter 9 delves into that.
Because when those fight or flight instincts kick in, we're not exactly crafting eloquent sentences, right?
And it highlights a fascinating fact. Our nonverbal communication can be even more impactful
Right.
than our words,
Yeah.
especially under stress.
Right.
And the book emphasizes that our body language
So even if my intentions are good, if I'm standing too close, it could backfire.
becomes even more important in those moments. So
Yeah.
let's start with the basics. Personal space. We all have that invisible bubble around us. And crossing that boundary can make people feel uncomfortable, even threatened. Absolutely. It can trigger that primal fight or flight response.
Okay, note to self. Respect the bubble. How much space is enough space?
It varies by culture and individual, but a good rule of thumb is to start at a distance where you can comfortably shake hands
Got it. What about other nonverbal cues for warmth?
without leaning in, then adjust. Based on the other person's cues, the book discusses mirroring,
Hold on, so if someone starts tapping their foot nervously, I should start tapping mine too.
which involves subtly matching the other person's body language,
Yeah.
gestures, posture, and even breathing rhythm. Not quite. It's about mirroring subtly.
Interesting. It's like a secret handshake for building connection. What about eye contact? I know that's important, but I always get nervous about staring too much.
When done correctly, it creates a sense of rapport, like you're saying, I'm on the same wavelength as you, without actually saying it. Eye contact is key for conveying warmth. But you're right, it's a delicate balance.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between locking eyes and avoiding eye contact altogether.
The book points out that prolonged, intense eye contact can be intimidating. Think relaxed, gentle gaze, holding their gaze for a few seconds, looking away briefly, then reestablishing contact. Exactly.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to my eyes from now on. So we've covered warmth. Now, how do we project that charismatic power without coming across as well?
A jerk. And your eyes can convey so much emotion. When you genuinely care about the other person, it'll show in your eyes. The book has some fascinating insights into projecting power.
Okay, now you've got to explain that one. Being the big gorilla. I'm picturing something very different. From charisma.
Non-verbally. One of the most intriguing is the concept of being the big gorilla. Think about a gorilla asserting dominance.
So it's about owning my power and not apologizing for taking up space.
Taking up space, standing tall, moving with confidence.
I'm not sure I'm ready to be that bold yet, but I can see how it would build confidence. Is there anything else that contributes to that powerful presence?
It's about owning your space and claiming your presence, not shrinking back.
Yes.
The book even suggests an exercise. Go out into a crowded environment and practice getting people to move aside for you without saying a word. Just visualize that big gorilla charging through the jungle and let your body language reflect that confidence. Another key element is stillness.
So it's like projecting an aura of authority and control. Is there a special technique for this?
Think of a king or queen sitting on their throne. They don't fidget.
Okay, I'm taking notes. I definitely have a tendency to overnod. So we've covered presence, power, and warmth. Now let's talk about how to make a killer first impression. I've always wondered what makes some people instantly memorable while others fade into the background.
They don't fuss. They exude a calm, grounded presence. The book calls it regal posture. It's about standing or sitting tall, avoiding unnecessary movements, and maintaining a sense of stillness. And here's a bonus tip. Cut out those reassuring gestures we use when we're feeling insecure, like nodding excessively or saying, too much.
Because those can make us seem less confident.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly seeking validation instead of owning our power. Chapter 7 tackles that head on.
So I really need to nail that first encounter. What does the book suggest?
It highlights how quickly we form judgments about people, often within seconds, these first impressions.
So it's about knowing when to blend in and when to stand out.
Can shape our perception of someone for a long time. It mentions the concept of tribal wear, which means adapting your appearance to fit the situation and the people you're with. It's about making those split-second judgments work in your favor.
Exactly.
And the book encourages.
It's like speaking their language through my clothing choices. What about the classic handshake? I've always been a bit awkward with those.
Doing your research beforehand. Figure out the dress code for that party. Observe how people dress at the company.
So it's not just a formality. It actually matters.
We have an interview. The book devotes a whole section to the art of the handshake. It highlights that a good handshake can create a sense of intimacy and trust within seconds, while a bad one can leave a lasting negative impression. Absolutely. The book goes into detail about avoiding
Well, I guess a good handshake really is like a secret weapon. So I've nailed the handshake. What next?
the dreaded dead fish and the overly aggressive knuckle cruncher, the ideal handshake. It's about finding the right balance of firmness and warmth. It even provides a step-by-step guide for mastering it, from the angle of your hand to achieving full palm-to-palm contact, The book emphasizes small talk,
Because people love to talk about themselves, but how does that make me seem more charismatic?
but with a twist. It's about using open-ended questions that encourage the other person to talk about themselves. Instead of, did you have a good weekend? Try,
Right.
what was the highlight of your weekend? It shows genuine interest.
Okay, I'm seeing how mastering these seemingly small details can add up to a big difference in how I'm perceived. But what about those longer interactions where I need to hold someone's attention? What's the secret to charismatic listening?
You're not just going through the motions of small talk. You're inviting them to share their story. And people are drawn to those who make them feel seen and heard. Chapter 8 delves into this.
That sounds lovely in theory, but in real life, my mind tends to wander, especially if someone is talking about something I don't find particularly interesting. Any tips for staying focused?
What's fascinating is that it goes way beyond just hearing what someone is saying.
Notice my breath. How does that help with listening?
It's about being fully present and engaged, making the other person feel like they're the only person in the room. It's definitely a challenge. The book emphasizes the importance
That's a neat trick. I'm going to try that next time I find myself zoning out. Any other strategies for quieting that inner monologue?
of silencing that inner chatter
Hmm.
and focusing all your attention
So I can actually train my mind to be more present and attentive.
on the other person. One technique is to simply notice your breath. When we're distracted, our breath tends to be shallow and irregular. Consciously breathing deeply brings us back to the present moment. It creates more space to truly listen. Another technique is to observe your thoughts without judgment, almost like they're clouds passing by. Or focus on the physical sensations of listening, the sound of their voice, the feeling of your body in the chair. It's about shifting your attention away from your thoughts and towards the experience of listening.
Exactly. And that's the foundation of charismatic listening.
The book also stressed the importance of not interrupting. That's a tough one for me. I tend to get excited and jump in with my own thoughts before the other person is finished speaking.
I understand. It's a common habit.
So no matter how eager I am to share my sights, I should give them the space to fully express themselves first.
But the book suggests practicing the art of pausing before speaking,
Yeah.
even if you feel you have something brilliant to add. Wow, that's next level listening. I'll admit that's going to take some practice. Any other tips for taking my listening skills from, well, average to charismatic?
And the book goes even further, suggesting that great listeners even let others interrupt them.
Wait, really? Let someone interrupt me. It seems so counterintuitive.
It might seem that way, but think about the message it sends. It tells the other person that their thoughts and feelings are so important that you're willing to put your own agenda aside to hear them. It creates a sense of safety and encourages them to open up even more.
Okay, I'm starting to see the wisdom in that. It's a powerful way to demonstrate that you truly value their perspective. Any other tips for taking my listening skills? From, well, average to charismatic.
The book encourages using open-ended questions to guide the conversation and keep it flowing.
So it's about asking questions that invite more
Yeah.
than just a yes or no answer.
In a positive direction. Instead of, did you have a good weekend? You could ask,
Yeah.
what was the highlight of your weekend?
Exactly. Open-ended questions encourage the other person to tell their story. This is all so helpful. I'm starting to realize that listening is a much more powerful skill than I ever gave it credit for.
And by actively listening, you're showing that you genuinely care about their experiences and perspectives.
It's like a superpower for building relationships. Okay, let's talk about charismatic speaking. I think a lot of people, myself included, get nervous about public speaking, or even just speaking up in meetings. What makes some speakers so captivating, while others put us to sleep?
Chapter 8 also dives into this. And what's fascinating
So it's not just about what I say, but how I say it. It's about the energy I bring to the table.
is that it's about much more than just conveying information. It's about connecting with your audience on an emotional level, creating a shared experience.
You're leaving a lasting impression.
Exactly. And the book highlights the importance of creating positive associations. Remember, our brains are constantly linking experiences and emotions.
So if I'm the person who always delivers bad news in a monotone, people might start associating me with negativity, even if the news itself isn't my fault.
The way you make people feel while you're speaking is as important as the message itself. Precisely. This is why it's so important to be mindful.
So even when the content isn't inherently positive, I can still strive to create a positive experience.
Of how we deliver information. Even when it's challenging, focus on warmth, empathy, and a genuine desire to help. Let those qualities shine through, even amid difficult news. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Choose your words thoughtfully. Express concern. Offer solutions when possible.
That's a good point. I've definitely been on the receiving end of some, shall we say, less than charismatic bad news deliveries. Makes all the difference when the person delivering the news seems to genuinely care about how you're receiving it. What about the actual content of our speech? How can we make our communication more memorable and impactful?
All of these contribute to a more positive experience for the recipient. Even amid difficult news, the book emphasizes the power
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of saying our new product is innovative, I could say,
of speaking in pictures. It turns out our brains are wired to process images far more easily than abstract language. Our new product is like a breath of fresh air in a stale industry.
perfect example. Metaphors and vivid imagery make your message stick. The book even points out that highly charismatic leaders like FDR and Lincoln use twice as many visual metaphors in their speeches as less charismatic presidents. Wow, twice as many. Those powerful speakers really knew how to paint a picture with their words. So it's about engaging the senses, making it visceral, and bringing the message to life. What else can we do to make our communication more captivating?
Remember, attention is a valuable commodity. It's crucial to deliver high value to your audience, whether you're giving a presentation, leading a meeting,
So it's about justifying the attention I'm asking for by providing something worthwhile.
or even just having a conversation. People are more likely to listen and engage if they feel like they're getting something valuable.
In return.
Exactly. And be mindful of how long you speak.
Got it. No rambling. Okay, let's talk about something that a lot of people, myself included, feel a bit self-conscious about.
The longer you speak, the higher the value needs to be to hold their attention. Our voice. How can we use our voice to project charisma? The book emphasizes voice fluctuation as the foundation for both vocal warmth.
You know, you're so right. I can instantly hear the difference between a nervous teenager speaking quickly and a judge delivering a verdict slowly and deliberately. It's like the judge's voice commands respect simply by the way they use it.
And power. It's about moving beyond a monotone and bringing your voice to life, using it as an instrument to engage and connect.
What are some specific things we can do to make our voices more engaging?
Think about varying your pitch, pace, and volume.
Because they trust that people will wait. It's interesting how a well-placed pause can actually create a sense of anticipation and draw the listener in.
And pauses. Confident speakers aren't afraid to pause between sentences, or even in the middle of a sentence. It makes them lean in.
And pay closer attention.
Exactly. And it conveys confidence and control.
So instead of ending my sentences like I'm asking a question, I should aim for that downward inflection. That suggests certainty and conviction.
The book also mentions the importance of intonation, the rise and fall of your voice. Yes, it's a subtle shift, but it can make a big difference.
And finally, don't underestimate the power of your breath. Breathe deeply and inhale and exhale through your nose in how your message is perceived. So breathing is important for charismatic speaking. It seems so basic.
It is basic, but we often forget about it,
Wow, it really is like we're breathing life into our words, isn't it?
especially when we're nervous. When we're anxious, our breath tends to become shallow and erratic, which can make us sound breathless and uncertain. Deep breathing calms the nerves, provides more support for your voice, and allows you to project more power and resonance. Exactly.
This is all fantastic advice for speaking in general, but what about those tricky conversations that make us want to hide under our desks, delivering bad news, giving criticism, apologizing for mistakes? These are all charisma landmines.
Chapter 10 tackles those head on.
So even when I'm dreading a conversation, I can still aim to be charismatic. I can still use these tools to create a more positive and productive experience.
And the good news is that the same principles we've been discussing apply, even when the stakes are high. Absolutely.
I'm sensing a theme here. It seems like inner work is truly the foundation for outer charisma.
The book reminds us that even challenging conversations are opportunities to practice charisma. It emphasizes the importance of approaching these conversations.
Speaking of framing things positively, the book talks about this idea of making the other person rationalize in your favor. What does that mean exactly?
With the right mindset, warmth, empathy, and a genuine desire to help, even in difficult situations. It's a fascinating concept.
So it's like softening the blow. By reminding them of their value and contribution, it's like saying, hey, I appreciate you. And even though this news might be tough, I want you to know that I value your perspective.
It's about framing the conversation in a way that helps the other person see things from your perspective and understand your motivations. One technique the book suggests is expressing appreciation for their help or impact. Even if you're about to deliver news they won't like.
Exactly. It helps create a more receptive environment because they're already feeling good
And when you're delivering bad news, the book emphasizes the importance
about themselves and their involvement, of getting yourself into a compassionate state.
because no one wants to hear bad news from a robot, especially if it's news that might be upsetting or disappointing.
Before the conversation, let your warmth and concern show in your body language and words.
Right, and sometimes being compassionate also means being mindful of timing. You don't want to drop a bomb on someone.
It's about being a supportive presence, even in difficult moments, when they're already feeling overwhelmed or stressed.
So it's about reading the room and choosing the right moment, or even delaying the conversation if the timing isn't right. It's about putting their needs and well-being first. Exactly. Sometimes that's the most charismatic thing you can do.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a bit more equipped to handle those tough conversations with a blend of confidence and compassion. What about criticism? That's always a delicate dance. How do we give criticism in a way that's both effective and, well, not soul-crushing?
Like all challenging conversations,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to practice charisma.
So it's about approaching it as a collaboration, not a confrontation.
The book emphasizes warmth and goodwill. Approach the conversation with a genuine desire to help the other person grow and improve, not to tear them down or make them feel bad.
Exactly. And be specific. Instead of saying, you're always late, focus on the behavior. I've noticed that you've been late to a few meetings recently. Is there anything going on that's making it difficult for you to be on time? That feels so much less personal and more focused on understanding the situation and finding solutions.
It is. And by focusing on the behavior, you're giving the person a chance to understand.
This is all so incredibly helpful. I'm realizing that even the most challenging conversations,
What needs to change and how to improve can be opportunities to practice charisma, to strengthen relationships.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something that really intrigued me earlier: emotional contagion. I've definitely been in situations where someone's negative energy seemed to bring the whole room down.
And to grow as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit unsettling to think that our emotions can be so contagious.
It is a bit unsettling, but it's also a powerful reminder of how interconnected we all are. The book points out that charismatic people tend to be more contagious.
But it's also a powerful reminder of how interconnected we all are with their emotions.
So if I'm feeling stressed and anxious, it's likely that the people around me might start feeling that way too.
Both positive and negative, they have a strong ability to transmit their emotional state to those around them, yes, unfortunately. And the opposite is also true. When we're feeling calm or
Okay.
confident.
So if I want to be more charismatic
Yeah.
and create a more positive environment, I need to start by managing my own emotions.
And enthusiastic, those around us are more likely to feel that way too
Absolutely.
when we embody those positive qualities.
I love that. So it's not just about me and my own personal growth, it's about the impact I have on the people around me.
It creates a ripple effect that can uplift and inspire those around us. It's like charisma becomes contagious, creating a virtuous cycle of positive energy and connection, and the kind of energy I bring to our interactions.
Yeah.
Precisely. And that's why mastering these skills is so important, especially for leaders.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about being charming or persuasive.
Your emotional state can literally shape the culture of your team or organization. It's about cultivating a way of being that uplifts and inspires those around us. It's about using our influence to create a more positive and productive world. It really is about expanding our definition of charisma, isn't it? It's not just about being the life of the party. It's about cultivating a presence that uplifts and inspires, that makes people feel seen and valued. That creates a positive ripple effect in the world.
You know, as we've been talking about all these techniques and strategies, it struck me how interconnected everything is. It's like charisma is a tapestry woven from so many different threads. Our mindset, our emotional state, our body language, our words, our ability to listen deeply, and even our capacity for compassion and empathy.
That's such a beautiful analogy. And the
Right.
book does a fantastic job of tying all those seemingly disparate elements together.
Right, into a cohesive framework. It's like we've been given a toolkit, and now we have the power to choose which tools we want to use and how we want to combine them to create our own unique brand of charisma. But where do we even begin? There's so much to think about.
Well, the book emphasizes that self-awareness is the foundation for all of this.
Because if we're not aware of our own tendencies, we can't effectively change them, right? It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
Throughout the charisma myth, The authors stress the importance of understanding our own strengths and weaknesses, our triggers and patterns, our unique quirks and tendencies.
Okay, that makes sense. But self-awareness can be a bit daunting. I mean, where do I even begin? And how do I approach it without getting caught in a spiral of self-criticism?
You've hit on a really important point. Self-awareness isn't about beating ourselves up for our shortcomings. It's about approaching ourselves with a spirit of curiosity and compassion,
I love that. It's like we're gathering intel on ourselves.
like a kind but honest observer. The book offers several practical suggestions for cultivating self-awareness, like keeping a journal, practicing mindfulness meditation, or even just asking trusted friends for feedback, and then we can use that information
But I think it's important to remember that self-awareness is an ongoing process,
to
right?
make more conscious choices
Yeah.
about how we want to show up in the world. It's not like we reach some magical state of perfect self-knowledge and then we're done. Absolutely. It's a journey of continuous discovery and growth.
I love that. It's about embracing the journey, not just focusing on the end goal.
And I think that's part of what makes charisma so fascinating. It's not a destination, it's a direction. It's a commitment to continually learning, growing, and evolving.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into charisma, I want to encourage our listeners to do just that, to embrace the challenge and the adventure.
Yes, of cultivating their own unique brand of charisma. And remember, it's not about becoming someone you're not. It's about tapping into your authentic potential, expressing yourself with greater confidence and clarity, connecting with others in a more meaningful way, and ultimately making a positive impact.
It's about being the best version of ourselves and inspiring others to do the same.
Beautifully said.
This has been an incredibly enlightening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of charisma, and I'm excited to start putting these techniques into practice.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
And remember, practice makes progress.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to stumble, to get back up.
That's a great reminder. And for our listeners who are ready to take the next step, I want to leave you with a little challenge.
And try again. Charisma is a skill that can be learned and honed over time. Think of one specific situation in your life where you want to feel more confident and charismatic. It could be an upcoming presentation, a difficult conversation, or even just a social gathering. Now choose one technique.
Yes, that resonated with you from our deep dive. And commit to trying it out.
Pick one small action step and make it happen. It could be something as simple as using an open-ended question.
Remember, small steps can lead to big changes. To start a conversation, visualizing yourself feeling confident before a big meeting, or consciously taking a deep breath to calm your nerves.
And before you know it, you'll be radiating that magnetic charisma that draws people in and leaves a lasting positive impression. Until next time, keep diving.
And keep shining.